In this video, I'll show you how to get Visual Studio 2022 working with Unreal Engine 5 step by step so you can compile Unreal Engine C++ without errors. Keep in mind the installation of an IDE like Visual Studio provides free support for languages like C++, which is required to edit the Unreal Engine source build or create a C++ game in Unreal. Also, the Unreal Engine source build is necessary for dedicated servers of a multiplayer game. In this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through everything needed, which includes installing Visual Studio components for Unreal, installing .NET and Windows SDKs so Unreal Build Tool works properly, linking your Epic Games account with GitHub in order to install UE source build, using Git commands to clone, set up, and build the Unreal Engine 5 source code. When we're done, you'll be able to successfully compile UE5 from source. Before we get into the video, I'd like to mention that I've been building a site called netcade.com. It's an indie-first platform for games, videos, and music. It's in an alpha stage right now, completely free to sign up and upload content without limits, and I'm using this channel to help grow that community, which is why future content you see from this channel will provide free project files and tutorials. If you have any content you'd like to share, consider trying out Netcade or join the Discord. The link is below. And so the first thing we're going to do is actually leave the Visual Studio website because it only offers Visual Studio 2026 right now. And unfortunately, Unreal Engine 5 only works with Visual Studio 2022, or it currently only is supported by Visual Studio 2022. So we actually want to go to the TechSpot site to download an official version of Visual Studio Community 2022 free version. So what we're going to do is go to this website here, and I'm going to just show you a few things along the way. You want to make sure that if you're downloading Visual Studio 2022, you're downloading an official Microsoft version. You don't want to be downloading any other random third-party program that isn't officially endorsed by Microsoft. So I'm going to go ahead and click the free community edition 17.14.22, and I'll leave this link in the description as well. And the download should, there it goes. So as you'll see, Visual Studio 2022 setup.exe. I'm not going to run it now because I want to show you a couple things. What I always do whenever I download an application from a third-party site, even though I know TechSpot in this particular instance is legitimate, I just want to run it by Jotty Malware Scan. It's a great site. I use it all the time. Anytime you're downloading a file that you just have any idea might have something in it that you don't want, always just run it by this virus scanjotty.org. And I'm going to find the file is Visual Studio 2022 setup, and that's the one. And what this does is kind of just runs it through various different virus scanners and detects if it finds anything that you obviously wouldn't want to install to your computer. So again, I already knew this, everything checks out. We're going to look at one more thing to even further prove that it's a legitimate upload, which is right-clicking, go to Properties. Oh, yeah, I'm on the right one. And then if we go into the digital signatures, you're actually going to see the name of signer, Microsoft Corporation. And that is another way of telling that, hey, this is a legitimate signature directly from Microsoft. So that's another really good way to determine that this is a legitimate upload. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And this is actually going to download the installer, which is what we need in order to download Visual Studio Community 2022. And we're going to start by checking off the .NET desktop development, the desktop development with C++, and lastly the game development with C++. And we want to take a quick look at the individual components as well. just to make sure everything looks okay here. And we want to make sure we have the .NET Framework 4.6.2 targeting pack, the 4.7.2 targeting pack, 4.8 SDK, and the targeting pack as well, and then the 4.8.1 SDK and targeting pack. Then if we scroll down here, we want to make sure we have the MSVC v143 2022 latest, and then we want to keep scrolling down. We want to make sure we have the C++ ATL for latest v143 build tools. And if we keep scrolling down, there's one other thing we need to look for. So what you really want to avoid when you're installing Visual Studio 2022, and this caught me up a few times, you really want to make sure that you're not installing the 10.0.261 version. This is actually not what you want. I've had a lot of errors with this particular SDK. You want to uncheck that if it is checked off, and instead you want to be using the 10.0.22621 right here instead, and that will, in my mind, solve a lot of the problems that you might have had otherwise. So this has worked really well for me. Again, this more recent one, 26100, has caused me a lot of issues when I go to build with my own games. And I don't know if this is actually required or not, but I'm going to go ahead and check off the Windows 10 SDK as well. I realize this one says out of support, but it's installed on my main computer, and I haven't had any trouble with this actually being checked off. So I'm going to go ahead and check that one off. That one might be optional. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on Install. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Continue. Now that the Visual Studio Community 2022 installer has completed, we're going to go ahead and move into linking GitHub with our Epic Games account. That way we can install the Epic Games Unreal Engine source build. Okay, now that we've installed Visual Studio, I'm going to head over to GitHub. Going to go ahead and sign up because we want to start from scratch. And now that we're signed in, we want to head over to the Epic Games GitHub. We go /Epic Games. And then I want to scroll down to the sign up repository. And now that we're under the Epic Games repository, you'll see that there are instructions for registering your GitHub ID using these instructions. So I'm going to click on that. And then it'll bring you to accessing Unreal Engine source code on GitHub. This is a new change they made within the last year. So it used to be where you would sign up directly through GitHub, but now what they're saying is you just want to be registered for GitHub while you have an Unreal Engine account or Epic Games account, and you just want to be able to connect both of them. So we're going to do that now. First, we're going to sign in to our Unreal Engine account. And now that we've created our account, we do want to go ahead and sign in using that account. And it looks like it was bouncing me back, but it does recognize that I am signed in now. So I want to go to my account, and then I want to scroll down to linked accounts, find my GitHub, link it, connect account, obviously authorize, click done linking, And now we have a connected GitHub account to our Epic Games account. This is what will allow us to access GitHub. And if we go back to the instructions here, we have connected GitHub to our Epic Games account. We've authorized it. And lastly, you will get an email invitation. It will send you a link in that email invitation to join Epic Games. And now that my email has loaded, we will see that we have a join Epic Games link. We're going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to join. And after we accept the email invitation, instead of going to the GitHub Mirror A link, we're actually going to go to the, because as you can see, this is a 404 page. Even after I refresh, the link in the forum post actually does not work. Where you want to go instead is the Epic Games / Unreal Engine repository. And I'll leave that link in the description below. And now you'll see you'll have access to the full repository. So at this point, I'm actually going to download and install the 5.7 source build. Obviously, as the releases come out for the different source builds, you'll just want to use whatever one that you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and open up my PowerShell, run as administrator. And then here's where we're just going to want to go into the directory in which we want this to be located. So I'm going to do CD, and I'm actually going to put this in my F drive. And then what we want to do in order to download a specific branch, in this case 5.7, I'm going to do git clone -- branch 5.7 -- single - branch https //github.com /Epic Games /Unreal Engine .git. And then I'm actually just going to also include the folder that I want it to be called. So in this case, it's going to be F /UE5. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to download these files within the UE5 folder that I'm creating with this command. And wants me to authorize. And now that I've authorized, it's going to download the files. This will take a little bit of time, and once this is done, we're going to move on to actually installing the files and installing the source build to our machine. Alternatively, if you'd like, you can also just click on this and you can just download the zip. You just need to be careful that you don't leave it in whatever default folder this goes to. Most likely that's going to end up in your downloads folder. And the real reason you want to avoid a very long path as opposed to putting it in a very high level directory like the root, in this case just the F drive. The real reason you want to prevent that is because the longer the directory becomes, the more likely it is that the path becomes too long, and you're going to get an error that says, hey, your path is too long. We're unable to successfully work with this file as a result, and we're going to have to skip it. And that's the last thing you want to see, because that can cause errors within your installation and problems with your engine going forward. So you just always want to make sure that wherever you're putting this, it's at a very high level directory. In this case, I'm going to have a UE5 folder, and then within that UE5 folder, I'm going to have the UE 5.7 source files, and that's where I want to leave things. It shouldn't be really too much longer than that. So actually, I thought there was going to be one higher level folder in the inclusion of this branch. So I actually thought there was going to be a UE 5.7 somewhere in between my UE5 folder and the actual setup and generate project files. So actually at this point, I'm going to go ahead and rename this UE5. I'm just going to rename it to UE57SRC, and that's completely fine. That's not going to hurt anything, and it'll just be a little bit more clear to determine that this is actually the 5.7 source branch within my F drive. So I'm okay with that. The next step that you want to take is clicking on the setup, making sure that it's the batch file that you're running. It looks like there might be a couple, and the same with generate project files. You always want to run the setup batch file first, and I'm actually going to right click and run as administrator just in case. And I believe it is, in fact, this setup that takes a very long time. Generate project files, I believe, is a lot faster and smoother. This is going to take some time, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here and come back when it's complete. Okay, now that the setup is complete, I'm going to run the generate project files. Again, just make sure you're running the batch file on this one, and I'm going to run as administrator. This one shouldn't take too long. All right, once that's done, we're going to want to scroll down and we'll see the UE5 solution file. We're going to double click this, and this is where we test out to see if our Visual Studio installation worked properly. The first load is going to take a little bit of time. All right, and once that finishes loading, you're going to want to go up here, make sure that this is on Development Editor. This is your solution configurations. If this bar is not wide enough, I'll show you a little trick. You just want to right click anywhere in the toolbar here, and you're going to want to go to Customize, and then Commands, and then go to Toolbar, and then under Toolbar, you're going to want to scroll down to Standard, and then scroll down here, and this is your solution configurations field. This is where you can modify this field by clicking on modify selection, and you can change this width to whatever you want. I changed mine to 200. I think the default was something much smaller. So once you change that to something like 200 and then click OK, it will solve that problem. And on this build, again, you're going to want to make sure you're on Development Editor and Win64, and then you're going to want to right click on your solution file and click Build. Now this is going to take a very, very, very long time. This can take potentially an hour, on some machines maybe even longer, so you're really just going to want to step away, do something else for a little bit of time, because this will take an extremely long time. But because we installed Visual Studio 2022 correctly, you shouldn't get any errors here, and it should be done when we come back. Okay, now that our build is complete, we're going to go back to our folder where the source build exists, and we're just going to test to see to make sure that everything's working and that the source build engine starts properly. We'll do that by going into our source build, going to engine, going to binaries, Win64, and then we're going to scroll down, and then we're going to click on the Unreal Editor. Okay, and as you can see, that loaded correctly. This is basically just the launcher, so you can go to new project from here, and for a new project you can create whatever you want. But yeah, we've successfully installed Unreal Engine source build that we can now use for our projects, and I'm just going to show you a few more things, but we're pretty much done at this point. There's just a couple more things that I want to mention. And what I'm going to do is, just to make sure that it's really on a source build, you can actually right click this and then go to switch Unreal Engine version. And then from here, you can literally see that it says source build at F-Drive UE57 source. So that literally tells us that's the exact one that we're using. So all good there, good verification. What we want to do now is a couple things. So I'm going to start with showing you how to move your plugins from your regular engine over to the source build. One of the biggest problems with creating a source build is obviously it doesn't carry over your plugins that you already have on your standard engine by default. So one of the most important things you can do is carrying those plugins over, so that way if you have an existing project, let's say, that relies on a few plugins, you won't have to completely reinstall them. You basically just carry them over from the existing project. So I'll show you how to do that now. The first thing we're going to do is create a plugins folder. And now that we have the plugins folder, we're actually just going to download and install a plugin off of the marketplace. So I'm going to go to the Epic Games Launcher, and I'm just going to download one of my favorite plugins, VA Rest, and that should be, they moved the marketplace, so actually we need to go to Fab, unless it's in here. It's not going to be in there. Let's go over here to the Fab. Okay, so now that we're in the Fab discovery, we're just going to type in VA Rest. Again, this is one of my favorite plugins. It's for REST API with Blueprint. And if I click on this, I'm hoping by Unreal Engine it means it's going to install to my 5.7. Okay, perfect. Slot add plugin 5.7. We're going to install this. And what this means is it's installing to my Unreal Engine 5.7 standard build. It's never going to install to any of my source builds because it's just not aware that I have those. So basically, if you didn't already have the standard version of the engine, you would just want to install it by, for example, 5.4. You would click install here. These are just standard engine versions, so you could add one and then select what you want and then click install. That's just going to be standard. These are not source. So for example, 5.7.1, now when I go to installed plugins, I see that VA Rest is a part of this plugin. So now what I can do is I can open up my directory, and then I can go to where this engine exists, and that's going to exist. This is on my C drive actually, isn't it? We're going to go to 5.7, and then we're going to go to engine. Then we're going to go to plugins, and there should be a marketplace. Here's the marketplace, and here's where our VA Rest plugin exists. So I'm literally going to Control C to copy that. And now what I can do is to bring this over to my source build, or I should say my project that's on the source build. What I can do is go to my project, which is Unreal Projects Test Source, and then back in my plugins folder that I just created, click on that and then literally just paste the plugin directly in. And now I have VA Rest on my test source project. And one little trick that you can potentially look into is when you go to edit in Notepad a .u plugin, you can see this engine version. Now, you don't need to add anything special if it's a source build versus a standard build for this. You don't need to type the word source or anything like that. You could just leave this alone. This is something where you might get errors if you say, for example, go from 5.6 to 5.7, and this one still says, let's say if it still said 5.6, you might get an error. But what you can literally do is change whatever number to the engine version that you're using, and assuming no significant engine change occurred that would break the plugin, it will actually load properly without issue. So keep in mind, you can always just use little tricks like that to make things work. Granted, it's probably a band-aid on something that you would want to eventually solve, but you can do that as kind of a workaround if you're getting errors regarding plugins. So going back to my project, now I have that plugin for this. Now you still might need to enable that plugin. So for example, if I double click on this, it might give me some trouble about having to enable something, but see, missing or built with a different engine, you would just go ahead and rebuild now and click on yes. And I'm not going to do all that, but that's just a good example of how to move plugins over from your standard engine marketplace plugins over to one of your source build projects. So that's it, guys. Please like and subscribe if this was helpful. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'm doing these videos because I'm trying to promote a website called netcade.com. You can upload free videos, games, music, whatever your content that you're creating to netcade.com completely for free, no limits. Eventually, I hope to be able to add Unreal Engine support, sort of like a Steam client where you can upload your Unreal Engine games, and again, completely for free. I really look forward to building that community and seeing what you guys are creating. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if this was helpful. There's a lot more future videos to come.